Ethan Carter stood at the edge of the lecture hall, fingers curling around the stack of notes he hadn't yet memorized. It was only his third week as a junior teaching assistant, but it already felt like the walls of academia were closing in on him. Too formal, too sharp, too filled with eyes that judged and mouths that whispered. The lecture hall buzzed as students filed in, slouching into seats, idly checking phones. Ethan cleared his throat and moved toward the lectern. Before he could open his mouth, the room hushed, and then she entered. Dr. Olivia Sinclair. He'd read about her before he arrived, published, acclaimed, powerful in her field of comparative literature, the kind of woman who didn't raise her voice, but when she spoke, the air changed. Her presence was not simply noticed, it was absorbed. She wore confidence like a scent, understated but lingering. Her heels clicked sharply, her hair coiled in a severe twist, but her eyes, they burned, observant, unforgiving, and far too intelligent to be unaware of her own allure. Ethan felt a muscle in his jaw tighten as she passed him, offering only the most perfunctory of nods. The lecture began. Olivia's voice was controlled, deliberate, each word placed like a chess piece. Ethan tried to focus on the discussion, Virginia Woolf and the blurred line between madness and genius, but found himself drawn to her hands, the sharp turn of her wrist as she annotated a quote, the way she paced just slowly enough to make the silence feel deliberate. After class, as students left and chairs scraped the floor, Olivia turned to him. "You hovered too long on Woolf's breakdown," she said without preamble. "I thought it was, romanticizing trauma doesn't make you insightful, it makes you dangerous." He felt the heat rise to his face, not embarrassment, but something else, the sting of being dressed down, the thrill of being seen. "Yes, Dr. Sinclair," he said evenly. She paused, as if measuring him. "Come to my office. We need to recalibrate your approach." Her office was on the top floor of the literature building, lined with books and framed black and white photos of writers long dead. The scent of aged paper, ink, and something citrusy, her perfume, hung in the air. Ethan sat stiffly on the edge of a leather chair. Olivia moved behind her desk, not sitting, simply leaning against the edge. "You're too eager to impress," she said. "I just want to do it right. Wanting isn't the same as doing." He looked up. Her gaze held him like a vice. He hated that it excited him, being corrected, dismissed, dominated. She wasn't flirting. She didn't need to. The power she wielded was subtler than that. "Tell me," she said, folding her arms, "do you always seek approval from women in authority?" Ethan's breath caught. "Only when they know what they're talking about." A flicker of amusement passed over her features, gone almost instantly. "Interesting answer. Dangerous, too." The weeks passed. Ethan became sharper, more precise. Olivia's critiques were brutal but effective. Their interactions remained professional, technically. But beneath it, glances that lingered a second too long, silences that pressed too closely. One night after a faculty dinner, Olivia found Ethan in the hallway, alone. Rain slicked the windows, and the air pulsed with electricity. "You left early," she said. "I was tired of watching professors pretend to enjoy each other." She smirked. "Cynicism doesn't suit you." He stepped closer, foolishly bold. "You watch me." "And you fantasize," she replied, without missing a beat. Silence. Raw. Loud. He could smell the citrus again, feel the temperature of the moment shift. "I won't sleep with you," she said, voice low. "I haven't asked. You haven't had to." Her eyes pinned him, and then she walked away, heels striking the floor like punctuation marks.
The line had been drawn, but it was smudged, blurred, not quite crossed, but not intact either. Ethan couldn't sleep that night. Her words spun in his head like a lit fuse. "You haven't had to." He tried to work, tried to focus on grading papers and drafting outlines. But everything he read felt like an echo of her voice, sharp, demanding, laced with the scent of oranges and fire. They avoided each other the next few days, or pretended to, but the energy was there, and the hallway glances, the tight-lipped nods, the silence that bloomed like heat. Then came the research retreat, a weekend in the mountains, just outside the city. University faculty were expected to attend. There'd be talks, workshops, late dinners, and rooms with thin walls. Olivia arrived late the first evening, dressed not in her usual severe attire, but a dark fitted blouse and slacks. Still professional, still untouchable, but different, softer, looser. Ethan felt her before he saw her, and when she stepped into the cabin's communal lounge, conversation stalled just slightly, the way it does when a predator enters the clearing. She spoke little during dinner, but he could feel her watching him across the table, not with hunger, but with control. She was measuring, calculating. Later, near the fire, he approached. They stood apart from the others, the flames casting shadows along the floor. "You're going to combust," she said softly, without looking at him. "What?" "The way you keep holding it in." "I'm not—" "You are." She turned to face him, close now, her expression unreadable. For a long, tight moment, he thought she might touch him, but instead, she said, "My husband will be joining tomorrow." The words hit like a splash of cold water. "Right, of course," Ethan said, jaw tense. "There is no this. He doesn't know about any of this. Isn't there?" A dangerous glint entered her eyes. Then she walked away again, always walking away, and leaving him burning. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He walked the halls instead, barefoot, head buzzing. As he turned a corner, he almost collided with her. She wore a robe, bare legs, hair unpinned. "I couldn't sleep," he said. She looked at him, really looked, then opened her door. Without a word, he stepped in. She didn't kiss him. She didn't touch him. She just stood there, watching him close the door, waiting. "I know what this is," he said. "Oh? It's not love, it's power. Then why are you trembling?" He was, just slightly, with need, with confusion, with want. Olivia stepped forward. Her fingers grazed his jaw, then his neck. Her thumb pressed lightly just below his throat. "You think you want me, but what you want is to be undone." And with terrifying gentleness, she began to do just that. They didn't sleep that night. But they didn't have sex either, not fully. It was worse than that. It was restrained, controlled. Every button unfastened was an instruction. Every touch was permission asked and given in silence. She showed him how to kneel, not for her, but for himself, for the surrender, for the hunger to be led. And when the sun crept into the window, Olivia sat beside him in bed, hair tousled, robe hanging loose. "Do you want this?" she asked. "Yes." "All of it?" "Yes." "Even the part where I'm married?" He hesitated. "That part hurts." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Good," she said. "Then we're still human."
Her husband arrived the next afternoon. Thomas Sinclair was everything Ethan wasn't: poised, older, with salt and pepper hair, and the kind of quiet charm that filled rooms without trying. He taught ethics and philosophy, and held himself like a man who believed in answers. Olivia barely looked at him, at least not in the way she looked at Ethan. They shared pleasantries at lunch. Thomas was kind to Ethan, even asked about his thesis. Ethan answered politely, stomach tight, jaw clenched. That night, Olivia didn't come to him. He didn't expect her to. The next day, during a workshop, She stood beside her husband, speaking about mentorship and professional boundaries. The irony stung like vinegar. Ethan kept his eyes on his notebook, but he felt her presence, like pressure in his chest, like a storm hovering above him. Back in the city, their rhythm changed. They didn't meet often, once a week, sometimes less. But when they did, it wasn't messy or impulsive. It was ritual, quiet, unspoken. She controlled everything: when, where, how far. She never used the word affair. She never said love, but she said mine, once, while tightening her grip around his wrist as he gasped against her neck. He never asked about her husband again, but the questions festered. Was she using him? Did she care? Was this just a chapter in her bored, brilliant life? He didn't want to admit he was addicted to the unpredictability, the power, the submission, the ache of never quite getting enough. Then came her. Madeline was another TA, newly arrived, fresh from Paris, with a chaotic beauty and the kind of laughter that licked the edges of every room. She liked Ethan instantly, and he didn't push her away. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't revenge. It just happened. A late study session turned into drinks. Drinks turned into her mouth on his. He thought he would stop, thought Olivia's voice would echo loud enough to keep him cold. But when Madeline whispered, "Show me what you want," something inside Ethan broke open. He was different now. Olivia had made him different. He showed Madeline how to kneel, not cruelly, not forcefully. He asked with his hands. She answered with her eyes. When it was over, guilt didn't come. Instead, something darker stirred. Possibility. The next time he saw Olivia, she noticed. "You smell like someone else," she said. "You never said I couldn't." "She didn't have to." Silence. Then she laughed, not kindly. "You think this is control, Ethan? Bringing another girl into the game?" "No," he said quietly. "I'm just tired of waiting for you to choose." She stepped back. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her. "I chose you the moment I didn't stop you that night." "Then why does it still feel like I'm the only one bleeding?" Olivia looked at him and didn't answer.
Olivia disappeared for a week. No texts, no cold looks across campus, no late-night invitations, just absence. Ethan fell into Madeline, her laugh, her softness, her easy chaos, but every time she touched him, he thought of Olivia's voice, the precision, the command. He tried to convince himself it didn't matter, that he could move on, that Olivia Sinclair was a phase, a fever dream, a beautiful kind of poison. But then, late one night, she called. Her voice was calm. "Come to my house." He froze. "Now?" "My husband is away. I want you here." "Why now?" A pause. "Because if you don't come now, I'll never ask again." He was there in 20 minutes. Her home was beautiful. Clean lines, glass, wood, iron, art on the walls, a piano in the corner. It didn't feel like her. It felt like a performance of a life she wasn't living. She met him at the door in silence. No kiss, no smile, just tension, thick as honey. "Upstairs," she said. He followed. The bedroom was dim, candles flickering. She stood at the edge of the bed and turned to face him. "I want something different." "What?" "I want to let go." He didn't understand, not at first. But then she stepped back and unbuttoned her blouse, slowly, carefully. She wasn't performing, she was revealing, not just skin, but something deeper.
a kind of vulnerability he hadn't seen in her before. "You've been waiting for me to fall apart. Well, here I am." He stepped forward, not as her student, not even as her submissive, but as a man who had once knelt and now chose to rise. They kissed, softly, deeply, like apology and forgiveness and hunger tangled together. And then she whispered, "Call her." He pulled back, startled. "What?" "Madeline. Call her." Olivia, why?" "I want to see you with her." He stared at her. "It's not a test. It's an answer." Madeline arrived just before midnight. She wasn't confused. She had known or sensed something lived behind Ethan's silences, something not just dark, but exquisite. She entered the bedroom slowly, eyes flicking between them. "Are you sure?" she asked. Olivia nodded once. And so it began. Not chaos, not lust for the sake of lust, but ritual, deliberate, beautiful. Olivia watched it first, not coldly, but with hunger, controlled so tightly it trembled. Then she touched, then she kissed, then she led. 3 bodies, 1 rhythm. And beneath it all, surrender. No jealousy, no shame, just release. After, the 3 of them lay in silence, skin against skin, breath slowing. Olivia whispered into the dark, "You think I'm broken." Ethan turned his head. "No, I think you're afraid." "Of what?" "That someone might stay." She didn't reply. Madeline smiled into the quiet. "Then maybe we both will."
Morning light peeled softly across the room, touching bare shoulders and tangled sheets. Ethan woke first, his body warm between theirs, Olivia on one side, Madeline on the other. 2 worlds he never imagined could coexist, and yet they had, at least for a night. He watched Olivia sleep. Her features, often so controlled, were unguarded now. The furrow between her brows relaxed, her lips parted just slightly. The powerful professor, the icy strategist, she was still there, but so was someone else, someone who had let herself be seen and touched. Carefully, he sat up. Olivia stirred. "You're leaving?" she murmured, voice hoarse with sleep. "No, just thinking. About what happens now." Her eyes opened. "You tell me." "That's not how this works." She smiled faintly. "It might be, now." Later that morning, coffee brewed in the kitchen. Madeline sat cross-legged on the countertop, wearing one of Olivia's shirts and nothing else. She looked entirely at ease, as if she'd lived in this house forever. "I like it here," she said. "It's not a bed and breakfast." "Could be," she teased. "You just need better signage." Ethan chuckled. He hadn't laughed like that in weeks. The air had changed. The silence between them was no longer tension. It was intimacy, shared secrets, warmer now. But something still twisted beneath it all. Olivia set her mug down and looked at Ethan. "My husband comes back tomorrow." The words sat heavily. "You want to end this?" he asked. She paused. "Then, no. I want to decide what it really is." Madeline tilted her head. "You think he'll suspect?" "He always suspects. He just doesn't ask." Ethan crossed his arms. "You think he'd be okay with this?" "I think he stopped being part of this long ago." They stood in that strange domestic triangle, lovers, co-conspirators, maybe more. And in that moment, Ethan understood he wasn't trapped between 2 women. He was part of something larger, more complicated, but also more real. The semester churned on. Rumors swirled, as they always do in universities.
glances in corridors, half whispers in staff lounges. But Olivia was ice, untouchable, brilliant. No one dared question her. Madeline stayed in her orbit, technically a colleague, casually Ethan's partner. No one knew the truth, not really. And Ethan? He stopped waiting for validation. He didn't need to be owned. He had become something else entirely, not her student, not her servant, but her equal. And oddly, Madeline became the balance, the warmth, the chaos Olivia didn't have, but maybe needed. They weren't a couple. They were a current. Some nights it was just Ethan and Madeline. Some nights Olivia appeared, sometimes to lead, sometimes to watch, and once just to sleep between them and feel human again.
The end of term arrived with gray skies and heavy deadlines. The campus thinned as students disappeared for the break, and the echo of empty halls pressed against the walls like ghosts. Ethan sat in Olivia's office, staring out the rain-drenched window while she graded papers. No one spoke. He wasn't sure when silence had become so comfortable between them. Not a pause, but a language. Finally, Olivia set her pen down. "She asked me," she said. Ethan turned. "Thomas?" She nodded. "He asked if there was someone else." "And?" I told him yes. The word sat between them like a dropped knife. What did he say? That he already knew. He just wanted to hear it. Ethan stood, restless. "So what now?" She looked at him, her gaze calm but unreadable. "He's moving out, not angry, just resigned." "That's it?" "No screaming, no threats, just silence, the kind that tells you it's been over for years." He exhaled, part relief, part guilt. "He was a good man, he just wasn't mine anymore." "And me?" She stood, stepped around the desk, and reached for him. Her hands were steady. "I'm not asking you to stay, but I'm not asking you to leave either." Ethan smiled. "That's the first honest thing you've ever said to me." They moved into a strange version of normal. No titles, no promises, just presence, connection, tension that no longer needed resolution to be real. Madeline remained, fiery, unpredictable, grounding. She refused to define anything, and that became their structure. No structure. Three people orbiting. Sometimes Olivia drifted inward. Sometimes she pulled away. Sometimes Ethan and Madeline curled together without her. And sometimes Olivia pulled them both in with nothing more than a glance. It was dangerous. It was beautiful. But it was also real. One evening, months later, they hosted a small dinner. Nothing extravagant. Wine, laughter, soft jazz on a record player. No masks. Just three people, cracked and reassembled. At one point, Madeline raised her glass and said, "To the unexpected." They all drank. Olivia leaned in and kissed her, then kissed Ethan. No one flinched. No one fled. No guilt,
No shame, just warmth.
Spring arrived slowly, dripping sunlight into windows and warming stone buildings that had felt dead all winter. Ethan walked across campus and realized he was no longer the boy who first arrived here. The hunger for validation had been replaced by something steadier. Not peace, exactly, but confidence. Ownership of his choices, of his voice. A year later, the world felt different. Ethan lectured twice a week in a smaller university on the coast. His apartment smelled like sea air and old books. His schedule was his own. And sometimes, when he passed by reflective windows, he barely recognized the man he had become. A far cry from the uncertain boy who once trembled under Olivia Sinclair's gaze. He still thought of her. Sometimes it was a scent, citrus and cedar. Sometimes a line from a novel. Sometimes in dreams her voice returned, telling him what to do, only for him to answer, "I already know." Madeline sent postcards, once from Amsterdam, once from Florence, and once with no return address, just the words, "I miss us." Not what we were, what we dared to be. He kept that one on his desk,